Let's talk about the three loves theory, specifically for people who have been through narcissistic relationships. A friend was talking to me about something she saw on Instagram, and it's something that's been around for a very long time. It was this idea that we have three loves, or three love stories in our lives. One is sort of the first love, young love, naive love. The second is often a tumultuous, one could say maybe narcissistic, chaotic and manipulative, messed up love. And the third is a didn't quite expect it, unconditional and committed, lasting love. It's a bit of a simplistic theory, and many, if not most people in the world probably don't have this. But it's an interesting theory to consider for people who have been through narcissistic relationships and are feeling despondent. But it's also cautionary, and it may not be a guarantee, right? So how many of you believe in this idea of the three loves in your life? Kind of like you have your high school love story, then a toxic love story, then the stable, companionate, you probably wouldn't have chosen this person on your own love story. If you did, drop that in the comments, and you're sort of a three love theory person. It's interesting because there are few sort of theories that take on these threes. Like Dr. Robert Sternberg has the triarchic theory of love, where he talks about the three pieces of intimacy: passion and commitment. Dr. Helen Fisher, a long time ago, wrote about lust, passion, and commitment. And it sort of seems that over time that Fisher's theory has morphed into this three loves theory, right? So anyone who has been through a narcissistic relationship would like to think, and we'd like to believe, it doesn't work this way, but we'd like to think we've built up quite a karmic bank account. And that maybe that someday out of nowhere, that sort of offset, that unconditional love story is looming. Not so fast. This is not elementary school where third grade comes after second. Let's take a look at this, because plenty of folks out there, to again also push back on this sort of three loves theory, have also never been through a toxic relationship. And some people do make it work forever with their high school sweetheart. And the fact is, some people never meet that unconditional, companionate person. And that may not necessarily be a bad thing. Most people will recall that first love story. Like I said, high school, early college, early adulthood, unburdened by adult responsibilities, sexual exploration, adolescent hormones. You think you'll be together forever, but have no conception of what it really means to be in a relationship. It's the relationship where you have sex in the backseat of a car because you probably didn't have your own place to live. This may ascribe to Fisher's idea of lust, right? And that sort of dies its natural death in most cases. People grow up, move away, life happens. And it can sometimes become a faint memory, even a good memory. However, this relationship is not always toxicity and narcissism free. Many of you might recall that your first relationship actually was toxic. And the idea that it is just hot nights in someone's parents' basement isn't always the case. This is often the place where the template of a toxic relationship, for all romantic relationships, gets set. And in this first relationship, you may have encountered intense jealousy, control, gaslighting, manipulation, competition, isolation, or even frank emotional abuse in these relationships. And because of the youth and naivete of the people in the relationship, of the two people in the relationship, especially the one who is enduring and experiencing all the jealousy and control, a person in this setup, in this kind of toxic relationship, in one of these early, idealized, lusty relationships, may not actually understand what's happening to them. Probably young, right? People can actually get stuck in this first relationship, often to their detriment. Again, because you are young, and it can mean losing out on opportunities in life, but it can also set up a precedent that can become even more concrete if you came from a dysfunctional or a harmful family system. Not all first love stories are just lusty and certainly not functional, not by a long shot. Now, in this three loves theory, it's the second love story that is often assumed to be the trauma-bonded, toxic, or narcissistic relationship. Again, I'm not sure about this since not everyone goes through this. I have met some folks who have never been in and don't know anything about a narcissistic relationship. Yes, some of them are in denial, but some of them just got really lucky. But the second love story in this theory, is believed to be the trauma-bonded, up and down, side to side, manipulative, gaslighted, loves me today, is distant tomorrow, and cheated last week relationship. This gets filed under passion, which, much like lust, can't last, burns bright, confuses us, and then disappears. But it doesn't entirely track. For example, many of you in long-term narcissistic relationships know that it was passion for a brief period, and then it was confusing and trauma-bonded, and you were trying to make sense of it. But all of this falls under this second dysfunctional relationship. Unfortunately, you may have kids with this person or get married to this person, and that means you end up being stuck in some ways to this person, sometimes for a lifetime. Apparently, this is supposed to be the love story where we learn hard lessons that we will take forward, right? That's what the theory says. I'm not sure any of us need these lessons. I think people walk out of these narcissistic relationships, these second relationships, with wounds and hypervigilance and lost trust. Is that worth it for the lesson? I don't know. There's also the belief that people want to fight for this second toxic relationship, right? It could be because developmentally, it comes at a time in life when a person may be looking for a committed partner. But this second love story, as it were, is the narcissistic relationship that, according to this theory, apparently more people than not have experienced. I'm not so sure about that. The tricky part of this three loves theory is that it can read as though this kind of toxic relationship, this second relationship, happens only once or with one person. Enough of you, raise your hand, have had multiple toxic relationships like this that you know it isn't just one. But when I sort of read more about it, it sounds like the second love isn't about one person, but about one cycle. So you may keep going back in with one person and get re-hoovered or thinking they have changed, or you may just find yourself stuck in a dysfunctional kind of dance with multiple toxic people. So it can help to think of the second love not as one person, but as one sort of phase or time in your life. A time of experiencing and working through trauma bonds and old relationship cycles and the confusion that comes from repeated betrayals and being gaslighted and all the rest of it. So that sets us up for love number 3. One could imagine that after going through love number 2, that nobody would ever want to be in a relationship again. Some of the premises of the third love is that it sneaks up on you, often with a person that you didn't quite expect, or maybe you couldn't picture yourself with. It sort of evolves naturally. It doesn't require hard work. It's not dysfunctional, and it's quite unconditional and easy. It's not so lusty and passionate. It's more of the true commitment, not necessarily a commitment on paper or the commitment because that's what marriage or living together is, but a natural and healthy commitment of a relationship. Now, some folks who write about this three loves theory stuff get a little poetic about this and may miss that this falls into the drawer of the companionate love. Your person, the person you can be messy with and don't feel judged and know where you can safely speak your mind. It's not perfect, and they may have foibles, but it works. This third love story, the so-called last love story, is a tougher one for folks who have been through truly narcissistic second love stories. because it's hard to believe that this person will come along or land on it. The disruptions of trust that come from narcissistic relationships, and the need to work through the core wounds and be discerning so more toxic people don't get in, and the working on your individuation and your autonomy, that's sort of the summit of healing. You need to do all of that to get here. One of the hardest parts of survivorship is going into the unknown of future relationships. Most survivors are too scared to do it again. Others are too skittish. Others jump the moment things go wrong. Others keep tolerating the old bad patterns. It can be really difficult to find the right stride. And here is what I believe about this so-called third committed love. May not be another person. Let's try this. Maybe it's you. It may be that you are finally comfortable with yourself, that you know yourself, that you stop judging yourself, that you're willing to pay attention to what feels uncomfortable and give yourself time and step back, that you trust yourself to have your own back, that you don't gaslight yourself. If someone else happens to fall into that story, then great. If someone doesn't fall into that story, then great. The healing is about you and an unconditional commitment to you. For a survivor of these relationships to get to a place where they're able to say, nope, that doesn't work for me, or that does not feel safe, or that's not what I'm about, and not feel the need to automatically bend to the will of someone else or what the world expects of you. That's a big moment. To unconditionally be in your own presence, maybe that's that third love story. In an ideal world, you get to this phase without having gone to the toxic one. But sadly, that can be the catalyst. And yes, lessons do get learned in these relationships if we are fortunate enough to get out of those second loves, those toxic relationships, psychologically intact. Listen, I can get down with some of this 3 love stuff if we can account for the idea that for more than a few people, number 3 may be you, the unconditional love story with you. And if someone joins you in a healthy way for part of that ride, then fine, but maybe that's not the story. That third love, after all of it, it has to be you, because the rest is gravy. So if the third love is you, make sure you do something nice for yourself, because that's what we do when we love someone. Thanks again.